Hello, and welcome back to Friend in Ministry podcast. I'm your host, Sharice Wesson, pastor, ministry consultant, leadership coach, and your friend in ministry. This podcast is designed to help pastors and ministry leaders build healthy ministries, lead with wisdom, and remember that nobody should feel alone in ministry. Today, I'm excited about jumping into our topic. This is actually going to be a 2-episode topic because there's a lot of information. So the topic we're going to talk about is 12 systems every healthy church must build. And before I jump completely in and take off running, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when I talk about systems. We have some ministries, ministry leaders, churches that they understand that systems help us to reach people. We have other individuals, other ministries, depending on your background. You may have had a bad experience, maybe with some broken systems, and you think that systems are not important. But I want to share from my heart that systems help us to reach people. Systems help us to be sure that nobody falls through the cracks. Systems will free you up as a pastor to not be overwhelmed, burnt out. So systems in and of themselves are not wrong. Systems don't replace people. People are always the priority, but systems help us to better serve and better reach the people that God has given us stewardship over. So just to bring us on the same page, make sure we're walking in the same direction. I wanted to mention that. But without taking too much of our time, I do want to jump in because there's a lot of really good information. A healthy church normally has 12 operational systems that work together, not separately from each other, but 12 operational systems working together. And when one is missing, you can feel it. It might feel a little chaotic or stagnant. You might feel like something's wrong, something's off, and it may not always be a spiritual issue. It might not be that you are in spiritual warfare necessarily. It could just be that a system's off and needs adjustment, and then everything can flow a little bit better. So number 1, vision and direction system. This is huge because vision should be communicated consistently, constantly, clearly, to ensure that everyone understands where the church is going. There have been so many churches that I've gone to, and I'm the kind of person, I'm going to ask members when I have the opportunity, hey, what's the vision of the church? And there are so many times that members cannot answer that. They don't know. But a vision and direction system helps us as pastors to lead. It's as if, I'll use this example. Let's say I rent a party bus and I want to bring everybody with me. Come on, guys. Come get on the bus. Let's go. First of all, you might want to know, who are you? Why should we follow you? Where are you going? When are you arriving? What are you doing? Why? Why? And these are normal questions. So as a leader, I've got to be able to answer these questions so I can get everyone to join me and we can go in the right direction. So if God gave me a vision, I've got to communicate it. I've got to communicate constantly what the vision is. I've got to tie everything to it. I've got to help people understand that, hey, when you are in there in the children's ministry, you are not babysitting. You are helping to fulfill the vision of this house by doing X, Y, Z, because our vision is X, Y, Z. And everything now becomes part of the vision. Instead of individual tasks or assignments that people are doing, now they are helping to fulfill the vision. So as pastors, it's very important, number 1, that we have a vision. And number 2, that we communicate it. And this system of vision and direction is going to include mission, vision, strategic plan. Yes, strategic plan is important. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. I learned that from John Maxwell years ago. And as kingdom individuals, as people who represent the kingdom of God, it's okay and it's necessary to have a strategic plan. Strategy is not secular. Strategy has been used time and time again throughout the Bible. You look at Joseph, who God let him know in advance there's going to be 7 years of famine, or 7 years of plenty before 7 years of famine. And he developed a strategic plan to collect a certain amount each year. So then Egypt was in a place economically to do very well during times of famine, being able to sell grain, things like this. And Joseph was successful because God was with him. And Joseph had a strategic plan. As pastors, we must embrace the fact that strategy and having a strategic plan is not secular and something that we avoid. In fact, it's something that God gives us. In Ecclesiastes 10:10, it says, if the axe is dull, we have to exert more strength. But wisdom or skill has the advantage of giving success. And God has that for us. He wants to give you as a pastor, as a ministry leader, a strategic plan to lead your people, to reach your community, to make a difference everywhere you go. Next, it also includes annual goals and ministry alignment, making sure everything aligns with the vision. Everyone's on the same page, going in the same direction, having a vision and direction system. And a common failure is that churches have activity but no direction. They have events that we don't really know how they tie into the vision. They could be fun events, they could be good events, but are they effective? Are they tying to the vision? Fellowship is important, but let's go ahead and tie in that fellowship to the vision of the church as well. Next, number 2, outreach and evangelism system. This is important. It should not need to be said that churches should evangelize, that they should reach out to their community. But there are so many churches who have stopped doing this. And the very first sign of church decline is when a church becomes inward focused. Everything is about the inward plan internally, what our members like, let's do this, it's fun, instead of getting out of the church and reaching the lost. So we must stress here the importance of evangelism and outreach. And they are two different things. Outreach is when you go into the community, serve and meet the needs and connect with people outside of the church. And evangelism is when you are intentional. You are there to share the gospel and you give them opportunity to receive Jesus. So there are two separate things that can work together very well. So outreach is different than evangelism. Evangelism is different than outreach. But we need both. So outreach and evangelism system. And the purpose is to create a consistent way that new people hear about the gospel and the church. This includes community outreach, service projects, evangelism training. This is huge. If you don't train your people to evangelize, they won't evangelize. If we don't preach it from the pulpit, they're not going to live it. It's just part of being a pastor. It comes with the territory. When you're not teaching, you're training. When you're not training, you're teaching. So it's got to be something that is in our mouth, in our lifestyle, if we want it to be in our people. Next, it also includes an invitation culture. This is huge too. Train our people to invite. Invite. An interesting thing is 70% of the time, if you invite somebody personally, they'll be open to come. They're open to the idea, but people don't invite them. Now, you might have to invite them 3 different times based on their availability, their trust, or just life situations. But typically, they're 70% of the time open to coming. And after the 3rd invitation, it's more than likely that they will come. But many times we don't even take the initiative to invite, as pastors and even as a church. And a common failure is that many churches rely on members inviting friends. And if that is your only strategy and your only plan, it's going to be very limited, especially if we're not training them to invite. So developing, building an outreach and evangelism system. Number 3, the next system is a guest assimilation system. And the purpose is to turn visitors into engaged members. Now, we just talked about the outreach and evangelism system. So if we are doing outreach and evangelism, we should see guests coming into our church. Not because it's a scam, not because it's a gimmick. Excuse me, my dog. He heard someone pass by. It's not a scam, it's not a gimmick, but it is a biblical principle of seed time and harvest. When you plant seed, you should get a harvest. That's Bible. So it's not about tricking anybody to come. It's nothing that is anything that is without character. You plant, you reap. Seed time and harvest. So getting out there and doing outreach and evangelism should bring in guests. So now when the guests walk through your door, how do we turn them from visitors into engaged members? So this should include a welcome team. And a welcome team is important. We don't want only to be a friendly church. We should be very friendly, yes. But we also want to be a welcoming church where people feel like they belong. And what this means, a friendly church is like, hey, we're happy you're here. So glad you're here. But the welcoming church makes people feel like they belong at this church. So there is a difference. Next, first time guest follow-up. I recently visited a local church one Sunday morning. My church has service in the evening. So I woke up Sunday morning a while back and I decided I'm going to visit this church. I know that this pastor, I know the camp he comes from. I know who his father is. And, the teaching has always been great. So I expected that this teaching was going to be great. I went there. Excellent, powerful message. Great service. I loved it. It was a blessing to be there. But what really got my attention was the quick response, the quick contact I got from that church. And I really commend them for this. Service was at 10 a.m. I think I left between 12:30. By 4:30 that afternoon, I had a text from one of the associate pastors telling me how glad they were that I was there, inviting me to come back, asking how everything was. And I just thought that was excellent. They didn't waste time. They quickly had a system in place that allowed them to better serve the people. And I just, even until today, I'm like, excellent job, guys. Membership pathway. It's going to include a membership pathway. How do people become members? And it's going to have connection events, connecting the new people with the congregation, with the pastors, with the leadership. And here we have a common failure where visitors attend once but never return. And if you don't have a system in place, you're not even going to be able to track this. So it's going to be important to track this, not because the numbers control us, but because with numbers, we can better serve. With numbers, even there was a good shepherd. He left the 99 to go after the one. That dealt with numbers. So visitors walk through the door, but they don't return. Well, how do we know they don't return? How do we know who the visitors were? Are we following up with them? Do we have contact? That's going to be important. So developing a system that can help us better serve our visitors is going to be powerful. Volunteer development system. This is huge also. So we already went from the evangelism and outreach to visitors, now to volunteers. And the purpose is to ensure every ministry has trained and growing volunteers. Trained and growing. And this is going to include recruitment. Recruitment should be ongoing. You don't wait until there's a volunteer crisis or that the leader is going to be out on medical leave to start recruiting. You recruit before you need. It's constant. One thing I did at a church where I worked, in my department, I had a system of volunteer. They would serve on either A team or B team. So A team was team A. It was going to be first and third Sunday. Team B was second and fourth Sunday. So when they were not serving, they were encouraged to go to the main service. And in the main service, after the message, people would turn to their neighbor and say, Are you born again? Do you need to accept Jesus? Would you like to become a member? And I told them, hey, what a perfect opportunity for us to include, would you like to come check out our department in teen ministry? Would you ever consider serving in teen ministry? Is God calling you to teen ministry? Whatever question they wanted to ask, but they were actively recruiting. And I did not have a problem. By the grace of God and by the wisdom of God to do this, I didn't have a problem with not enough volunteers. And it was something that I highly recommend. After having lived that, seeing other departments that were struggling to get volunteers because they were not actively recruiting. But when you actively recruit, and please do not wait for the pulpit announcement. That is the weakest recruitment system. Like, I think it's 2 to 3 or 2 to 6% of people respond to a pulpit announcement. But I believe it's like more than 70%. I forget the number off the top of my head. I'll say roughly 70% response rate if you invite them personally. So recruiting should be ongoing. It should be personal. And it should be part of the system. Training, you should be training your volunteers. Do you have any system to train them? Or did you just show them once and expect them to memorize it? You should constantly be training. What training are you providing them? Onboarding. Are you bringing them on and telling them the expectations, what time to be there? What you're looking for, do they know? And finally, the leadership pipeline. Do they know who is in charge of what department? Do they know who the leaders are? Do they know how they can go from being a volunteer and potentially growing into leadership themselves? These things are important. And a common failure here is that many ministry leaders burn out because they try to do everything by themselves. And when you try to do everything by yourself, not only do you burn out, but you become a bottleneck. And the people that God sent to your church are not being used properly. And it puts you in a place as a leader where you're thinking, oh, I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired, and nobody helps with anything. Well, did you have a system in place to bring the volunteers through, to recruit them, train them, onboard them, and teach them the leadership pipeline? That's going to be important because you can't complain if you didn't have a system in place. So that's one another very important system that healthy churches have. Number 5, leadership development system. So we talked about volunteer development, of training and growing volunteers. Now we're talking about developing future leaders and pastors. This is important because we need to think ahead for the longevity of our ministry. I have a background in a ministry that was very much, planting many locations. You could be asked to go to this location, asked to go to that location. I worked at the headquarters for all of our location plants, and it was really fun and exciting. But you had to develop leaders because you needed to have a successor always. Because either you or your successor could be called to go somewhere else. And as leaders, we think this way. We don't know if God's going to call someone to move, if somebody's going to get a job opportunity, if they need to move back to family. When we deal with people, there are so many factors. And we love the people, but ministry should never depend only on one person. A department should never depend only on one person. So we must constantly be developing future leaders and pastors. This includes mentoring, leadership classes, not just leadership meetings. And I want to encourage you, even with your leadership meetings, be intentional. Have an agenda in writing, something that they can take with them. Don't just meet just because it was on the calendar, but have something to say. Be intentional. What do you want the result of this meeting to be? What training do you want to have? So leadership meetings are good. They're important. But beyond that, leadership classes where you are intentional about training, teaching. Maybe you're thinking of having a pastoral class to teach people, upcoming leaders, how to be pastors in the future. Ministry internships, allowing people to get involved in an intern type of way. Leadership pipelines. Again, this is important. Having leadership pipelines, knowing the flow of decisions, the flow of leadership, knowing how that works. Some common failures here would be mainly that churches rely on the same few leaders for years. And I understand the people who are close to you, the people who have proven themselves, the people who have been through difficult times with you, you tend to trust so much. And that's okay. Keep them close, yes, but constantly develop more leaders. We need to constantly develop. Let's move to number 6. And after number 6, I'm going to end this part 1 of this topic. And in the next episode, I'm going to pick up in number 7. But number 6 is discipleship systems. So the purpose here is to help believers grow spiritually and mature in faith. And this is going to include like your small groups, a discipleship curriculum, mentoring, a spiritual growth pathway. And here, a common failure is when churches create converts but not disciples. But I want to back up. Today, there are many churches who are not even creating converts. People are not even getting saved, making a decision. Sometimes we have people who hop from church to church and we're just recycling members. And it's difficult to disciple somebody who won't stay planted. So that's one thing we have to look at regarding this discipleship system. Number 1, creating converts, reaching the lost. And number 2, discipling those who want to be discipled. And still loving people who may not want to be discipled, creating opportunities for them, but not taking things personally as well. And your church may be the church where they do stop and they become member. Maybe it's the one that God did call them to. But let's both create converts and let's also disciple. The Bible tells us to go and make disciples of all nations, right? So we have those first 6. I'll recap them again for you real quick. Number 1, vision and direction system. Number 2, outreach and evangelism system. Number 3, guest assimilation system. Number 4, volunteer development system. Number 5, leadership development system. Number 6, discipleship plan. Wow, that was only the first half, and I'm already super excited to jump into the second half in the next episode. And I want to thank you so much for listening to this Friend in Ministry podcast. And if this episode encouraged you, please feel free to share it with another pastor or ministry leader who might need it. And for leadership tools, ministry resources, feel free to visit ChariceWesson.com. And remember, nobody should feel alone in ministry. God bless, and I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.